Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the beautiful and wonderful Nintendo Switch Lite and see if this particular device is still worth buying in 2024. Now, I have a mixed relationship with the Nintendo Switch Lite because as a console, I'm like, yeah, for sure. I love the Nintendo Switch. I think these things are still worth buying for sure. However, from a pricing standpoint, I don't know if the Switch Lite is the one I would recommend a vast majority of people to buy when you can go ahead and buy some other consoles like the original Nintendo Switch and get a far superior console in every single way. And I guess the bigger question is, well, should you save money and buy a Nintendo Switch Lite, or should you spend more money and buy a Switch or an OLED model of the Switch? So I'll kind of break that down throughout this video. I will tell you though, if you want to pick up a Nintendo Switch, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now there's a few things I want to hit on throughout the duration of this video. One, we're definitely going to hit on the comparison between this and the other Switches, but I also want to hit on later on in this video, even if the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, how it's going to impact the Switch Lite and whether that's going to change my opinion on whether I'd recommend people to buy a Switch Lite or not. Now the big thing is on the exterior of the Switch Lite. The biggest difference between this and the other models, as you may know, is that this one doesn't have two things. One, it doesn't have removable Joy-Cons, so you can't go ahead and just quickly remove the Joy-Cons and replace them. And two, it doesn't have the ability of being docked. There's really no other way around this unless you want to stream it from a phone to a TV or something like that. There's no native way. A lot of people have tried it, so if you are planning on buying a Switch Lite to try to see if you can dock it, there's just no way to do it. It's always going to be on that screen. However, you can always buy the other Switch if you want to, but with the Switch Lite, I will tell you it still looks like a pretty decent console. So on the front of the Nintendo Switch Lite, you're basically getting a 5.5-inch LCD touchscreen. It is, smaller than the Switch and the Switch Lite's, panels. And it's also not, I would say it's not as good as those panels either, but it's still a fairly decent display. It's a good display. It's a touchscreen, so you can go and tap it onto, other things. And I will say, you're not missing out on anything from the feature side of the other Switches when you're in-game. You're going to be getting the exact same gaming experience that you're getting from a Switch or an OLED Switch. It's not like because you have a smaller display or a different type of, display, you're going to get a different experience. That's not really the case. It's going to be basically the same type of console on all the devices, which is actually very, very nice to have. So that right there is something that's really cool. On the sides, you have your joysticks, you have your, the buttons that you can normally click on, which is nice. On the bottom, you have your USB Type-C port. On the top, you have your game card slot, you have your other areas, you have a micro SD card slot on this device. And on the back, you basically just have this flat back, which is very good. I have the gray model. I've always liked it, but you can always buy the other colors if you want to. There's a couple of different colors you can choose from. So that kind of covers it up on the outside. Now, the only con I would say from the outside, I don't even have an issue with the size of the display. I don't have an issue even with the docking. I don't really mind not docking my console because I know this is a portable device. I can take it to go. The only issue I have with the Switch Lite, at least on the outside, is the Joy-Cons. Joy-Con drift has been one of the biggest issues on almost every single Nintendo Switch, and even the Switch Lite does experience this, but having the ability on the original Switch or the OLED Switch of just quickly going through and then just replacing the Joy-Cons and then just fixing it yourself or sending it to Nintendo and then fixing it for free, you have that type of capability on the OLED Switch or just these other Joy-Cons. With the Switch Lite, you don't really have that type of capability. So if something goes wrong on those Joy-Cons, you will have no other choice but to basically take it, basically either replace it yourself and fix it or contact Nintendo and pester them to fix it themselves. So, and I don't even know if that's free. So you have a few different options there, but in my opinion, the best advantage with the Switch Lite and the OLED Switch, rather than just docking it, that's probably the best feature. You have that ability of switching out the Joy-Cons. But on the outside of the Switch Lite, that's really my only thing. In 2024 though, the biggest feature of the Switch, and one of my favorite things going on for the Switch Lite, is that you have the exact same gaming library as the other Switches. All the other games the Switch OLED and other Switch can play, the Switch Lite can also play. That is a massive advantage because the Switch Lite is, it's a significantly cheaper console. Although it doesn't have all the features, you can still play all the games on that console, which is amazing and one of the best features going on for that particular device. The gaming library of the Switch Lite is just so massive and it's just so beautiful that you can easily just keep the Switch Lite for years and years and years and have endless amounts of games to play through. There are such high quality, great, storyline games out there for your Switch Lite, and that is probably the best advantage of buying this type of console. But some people will say, well, isn't the Switch 2 coming out? Isn't the Switch 2 coming out this year or next year? Why would I buy this thing if the successor is going to come around? Now, this is a multi-part story. There's not just one answer here. But the thing I will tell you is that, yeah, the Switch 2 is basically coming out this year or next year, whatever. But does that really impact the Switch Lite's current gaming library? Maybe there's not like any insane games coming out, in the future of this console anymore. But in the past, there were so many games that came out. And I ask this question all the time too. Is the Nintendo Wii still worth buying? Is the Nintendo DS still worth buying? Is the Nintendo 3DS still worth buying? Well, we've had all the successors of those consoles, but there's something about having the original hardware in your hands and being able to play the vast, library of games that those consoles came out with, that even though we have the successors of those consoles, people are still buying Wiis, people are still buying GameCubes, PlayStation 2s, because there's so many games that came out for that console, and having the original hardware to play those games is very cool. So the same thing I would say with the Switch Lite. You have an endless amounts of games to play on this console that if you're coming from like not having or playing any Nintendo Switch games to getting into the Switch library, even getting something like the Switch Lite is giving you endless amounts of gameplay and endless amounts of experiences from this type of console, because you're just getting an insane amount of library of games to choose from. So that was something that was very big and important for me to kind of tell a lot of people, is that even if the successor of this thing comes around, that doesn't impact this particular console. Actually, it's probably going to help you, because you can buy some of these older consoles for cheaper, because most people will probably end up selling their older Switches and buying the newer ones since they're maybe, backwards compatible. Now, if you have a current Nintendo Switch, so let's say you do have a Switch Lite, or you have an OLED Switch or whatever, and you're wondering, well, should I go and upgrade to the Switch 2? Well, in that question, I'd probably be like, yeah, like if you want, go for it, but you're really not going to be missing out on too much. Even I feel like there's still going to be a lot of overlap between those types of consoles as well. So once again, you're not going to be missing out on too much there either. But I definitely would tell you, from the gaming library of the Switch Lite, it's very good. But looking at the future of the Switch Lite, I definitely do think that if you're, anticipating way more games coming out for this console or anything like that, I definitely do think we may be getting like one or two bigger titles coming out maybe this year. I have no idea what they could be, but I don't think Nintendo's going to completely just, move on from the Switch lineup. If you kind of look back with the Wii and the Wii U transition, they really did kind of like move on pretty fast. They kind of like pushed a lot of bigger games on the Wii U, and that didn't really do too well. With the Switch, they did port over a lot of Wii U games over to the Switch, so there are still lots of Switch games that are available on the Wii U. I do think that's basically going to happen with the Switch 2, at least for the first year or two. Any big title game I think they make for the Switch 2, they will be making for the Switch Lite and the other Switches. I could be wrong. You would think they wouldn't do that, but there's a likelihood they've done it in the past. Even with Super Mario Galaxy 2, all these other games, I feel like they could end up doing that for the next successor as well. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But I would definitely tell you, with the Nintendo Switch Lite, I definitely do think this is a beautiful console. I like this console a lot, and it has a lot of capability still, and I still think it's completely worth buying for sure. It's not perfect. It's not like the first console I'd recommend people to buy, and I definitely would tell you, if you have more money to spend, buying something like the Nintendo Switch OLED or the original Nintendo Switch, any ones that you can dock with the Joy-Cons, would be much, much better, and I would way recommend buying those consoles than this one. But the choice is yours. I do like the Switch Lite a lot, and I'd still recommend people to buy that one over not having any sort of Nintendo Switch. So the choice is yours, but that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.